evening, and welcome to the news. I'm Reed Porter. Our first story tonight is in New York City. We'll send it over to Carly Crash.
We're here in New York City, where it is reported that a man is hit by a car every 45 seconds. He is not expected to live.
Ouch! In other news, the wig and toupee factory has been robbed today. Police are combing the city. Now we've got a special story for you, and we'll be taking you to Central Park. Take it away, Sue Adge.
It seems that all the bathrooms here at Central Park have been stolen. Police say they have nothing to go on. Back to you, Reed.
This just in. Russia, Iran, and Nigeria have allied together and are putting a full frontal assault on the East Coast. We have our political reporter, Patty Cakes, who will be covering this story. What's with those three anyway?
Well, who knew that those three would make such a powerful alliance? We have Myra Maines on the line who's going to tell us all about it. So we all know about the brutality and culture of the Russians, but what's their economic situation like?
Russia has liberalized their economy.
Well, what's that mean?
Economic liberalization just means that the government controls less of the economy. This has happened drastically at the fall of the USSR. At the time, Yeltsin used something called shock therapy. In communism, everything in the economy was controlled by the government. When that fell, the economy went from communist to capitalist overnight. The Russians didn't know what to do and are still struggling with this today.
But what about their politics?
They also have been politically liberalized a little bit. In Russia's constitution in 1993, civilians were given some rights and the opportunity for a national referendum. The president calls a referendum so he will know the people's opinion, whether it's just on his presidency or a law or anything really. It gives the people some voice in the government.
Thank you, Myra Maines. Another update. The Americans are rapidly losing ground. We may be facing a full-on takeover, but don't worry too much. It could only change the way our country runs. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Iran so we know what we're up against?
Iran. Now we have our specialist here on Iran, Robin Banks. As many of us know, the whole country is just a bunch of terrorists. But what kind of politics do they have? What's their electoral system like?
Well, they're actually not all terrorists.
Right, okay, whatever.
Anyway, some of what we expect of our government, political competition, and transparency are lacking in modern-day Iran. Now, transparency is essentially government's openness, citizens' ability to receive and access information on government operations and political issues. It helps keep them accountable. In Iran, transparency can be an issue when it comes to voting. The most prominent reason for this is the Guardian Council's ability to dismiss candidates in elections without giving reason for it. This means candidates can be removed from the running without any information given. The Guardian Council is essentially able to do whatever they like because they hold that power.
You mentioned political competition?
Yes, thank you. Political competition is when we can get multiple candidates or parties that are able to run in elections and actually have a chance of winning, as opposed to getting appointed officials or a one-party government. In Iran, there are two basic parties. The two parties are the religious conservatives and the reformists. Now, the Guardian Council, which is the body of the government that makes sure everything in Iran is right according to Sharia law, can disqualify members in an election if they find them too secular or worldly. So, the only way to keep the Reformist Party in the running each term is to dissolve the party after an election and reform it again around the next election under a different name. This strategy helps improve political competition in Iran despite the Guardian Council's ability to discourage it.
Moving on to Nigeria, I hear they've had some problems with military coups. Why don't you tell us about it, M. Besler?
That's right. After Nigeria gained independence from that colonizing, tyrannical, monstrous... That's right, sorry. After they gained independence from Britain, they experimented with several different types of government. They tried a prime minister, but this failed, and was followed by military rule. So they tried their hand at democracy, but this was slapped back by a coup d'etat. Since then, they've continued to reach toward democracy. Their past three presidents, which were all elected instead of taking power militarily, have all been civilians instead of military leaders. Plus, the past two presidents, Goodluck Jonathan and Yar'Adua, were not even former military. This separation from military and military rule to civilian and civilian rule is a good step toward democracy.
What could have prompted this shift?
Well, this change in type of leader can most likely be attributed to democratic movements, which have been occurring in Nigeria for decades. The people are getting tired of corruption and excessive power at the governmental level, so they've started movements to change this government. This is reflected by their votes and the leaders they've elected.
Ah, I see. How about economics?
Well, Nigeria has been experiencing a downward trend in their economy for several years. This comes in part from Nigeria being an increasingly rentier state. Don't panic at the unfamiliar vocabulary. Being a rentier state just means that Nigeria obtains much of its revenue from renting land to foreign countries. Such dependence on the world market causes their prices to fluctuate. And to make matters even more unfortunate, there is also a lack of accountability to state citizens. Basically, if a company wants to rent land for an oil well, then the Nigerian government takes money from that rent, then the oil company takes money from that company, and the Nigerian people get nothing. So, all you lovely folks at home, now is the time to prepare yourselves for massive corruption.
Well, you heard it from the mouth of our specialist. It's all you, Reed Porter.
Wow, is that crazy or what? We've certainly learned a lot tonight, but it's all going to be okay. I've been receiving word that the U.S. military definitely has it under control. Now over to weather. What's it looking like, I'm a lost?
Well, it's going to get darker tonight, occasional stars. If we look at some of our major areas, we can see the weather in the Iranian Valley. Overcast with an 85% chance of Sharia. Nigerian front, 90% chance of military coup with lows in the 1990s. West Russia, clear skies with a bit of concentrated powers later in the day. East Russia, freezing temperatures with a good chance of exclusion. And our 5-day, 99% accurate forecast is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a 90% chance of weather with highs and lows. Back to you, Reed Porter.
Thanks, I'm a lost. We've received more news on Russia, Iran, and Nigeria. Apparently, the military did not have it under control, and we have been put under new management. Our new leaders constitute an Ayatollah, or Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and 3 presidents, Vladimir Putin, Goodluck Jonathan, and Hassan Rouhani. Our judiciary branch now consists of Sharia courts infused with common law. I recommend that we all migrate to Canada. Well, that's the kind of day it's been in news. We hope it's been kind to you. Allah Akbar.